that's going.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Let's try it. Okay.
Yep.
So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, clap. Okay.
Yep.
Here we
Okay.
go.
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Still just not a thing.
2 grown women
2 grown
who
women.
can't clap in unison.
Nope.
Just so bumbling. I can't.
All right. We want to try one more time?
You know what? We'll try one more time.
Okay.
We'll try one more time.
All right. Okay. Let's just close those eyes again. 1, 2, 3, clap.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, this is such a joke. I was just going over the rhythm of it.
I know.
I love that in the attempt to make this easier for Ryan to edit, we've made it now. Yeah. There's 18 claps. Which clap?
Oh.
Because I would love to go in and pre-edit this for him, but God knows I don't know how to. So Ryan, if you're listening, this is the one. Go by this one. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
So you're saying no?
No, it was off.
Really? It sounded great. It sounded great over here.
Well, unless there's a delay. There might be a delay in the video. Is there a lag?
I don't know. It was a very loud clap to me. So unless I just had extra like vigor to it, and it was my own clap I heard. I felt like I heard both of ours in a beautiful unison.
This is what it sounded like to me. 1, 2, 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not how it came over here.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe we should delete this audio file and start anew. What do you think?
You know what? Well, it's probably for the best.
I'm going to leave the Zoom recording because why not? This is going to be fun for bloopers, right?
We've got so many already.
So many bloopers. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Are we going for the clap or we're just going to leave it because we know we can't?
Let's try one last time. So ready? On 3 to record. I'll go 3, 2, 1. We'll hit record and then we'll try the clap.
So I shouldn't have already hit record.
Are you recording? It's fine.
I was.
Okay, I'm recording now. Are you recording now? Okay, here we go. This is it. True Crime and Cocktails. Episode 5. On 3.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, again, it's I look forward to you seeing the video. Then you'll see what I see. I think that's fine. Yeah. I think Ryan's got it. He's got it going on, so he'll get it.
He's more professional than we are.
He knows what he's doing, not his first rodeo. All right, I'm just going to get into it. How's it going? I always say what's up. What am I doing? Oh, God, I'm not even drunk. All right, here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of True Crime and Cocktails, Unsolved Mysteries Edition. I am your host, Lauren Ash, and as always, I am joined by my co-hostess with the mostest, the top internet researcher I know, Christy Oxborough. How's it going?
It's really good. I mean, I am, my brain is full mush at this point, but,
Sure.
I mean, I just want to I want to make sure my deep dives are top notch.
Of course.
I've got a brand. I've got to represent every time, you know?
Of course. And the people love you for it. If you've never listened to our show before, what are you doing? If you have, just, zone out for a couple seconds here while I get the rest of the people up to speed. We are going to be talking about an episode of the new Unsolved Mystery series on Netflix. Today's episode is Berkshires UFO. Okay, we're going to be talking all things UFO. But again, if this is your first time joining us, you should know a few pieces of information. One, you're going to want to go onto Instagram, follow at True Crime and Cocktails, because if there are any sort of visuals that Christy is going to use during this episode, that's where you're going to be able to find them. We've got our own little case files for every episode up there for you to cross-reference. You should also know that it's a little bit dark because it's nighttime and we wear matching shirts because we're dorks. So this is basically like a slumber party. And the last thing I need you to know is that we actually have a guest on today's episode, a lady that I'm a big fan of, and that is Ms. Kim Crawford. I'll be drinking her Sauvignon Blanc. She does good work. She does good work. And Christy, what are you drinking over there?
What do you think? A frosty mug of Palm Bay.
Nice. I miss Palm Bay. And what I like is that you're really speaking to our Canadian listeners as I speak to our American, I guess, is Kim Crawford Australian? I don't know. Yes.
You're asking the wrong lady.
Excuse me. This was made in New Zealand.
Oh.
Pardonnez-moi. But anyway, so I hope you're ready to deep dive into Berkshires UFO. I hope you've got your cocktail and your PJs on and you're ready to join us. What we needed to talk about, of course, because when we first talked about this episode, obviously the first thing that came to mind for the both of us is I would say love, but I think it's more borderline deep obsession with the X-Files.
Yeah.
You literally, I remember it was like we were first talking about this and you were like, well, I guess you could speak to it, Miss Obsessed with X-Files. And it's fair. That was a fair assessment because that is my favorite show of all time. I've seen it many, many times, all the way through the entire series. And when it was first out, I believe it was season 1, my mother, she won a contest to get free tickets to go to an X-Files convention in Toronto, Ontario. Thank you very much. And I think I was maybe like 11 or 12 at the time. And it was so exciting. It was at like this giant kind of like ballroom place. And they had like kind of like supporting actors there. And I got to tell you, Laurel, my mother, Christy's aunt slash, mother type, because you do have some similarities, which we will get into in a few minutes.
We do.
Which we learned again very recently. So we're sitting in this ballroom waiting for this special guest from the X-Files to come out. It turns out it's actor Nicholas Lay, who played Agent Krychek on the show. I know this means nothing to you.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. But you don't need to know who he is for the rest of this story because Laurel stood to her feet apropos of nothing and just started talking to him. This is in a room full of probably 600 people. Just starts talking to him about like, hey, did you get a haircut? You look great. And I was just like, what is she doing? And then, of course, they had to make an announcement like, please don't speak out from the crowd. We'll get to you if you have a question type thing. Also, I did try to stump the experts, and I didn't stump them. My question was, when Mulder was on the stakeout in season 1, what beverage did Scully bring him? And the answer is root beer.
Oh.
And they got it because it's a trick question because he goes, Scully, if there's an iced tea in that bag, it could be love. And she goes, must be fate, Mulder, root beer. He goes, oh, I mean, I watched that scene probably 6,000 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was one of the moments of lightness on that show where he was very charming. But anyway, I digress. The whole reason why I bring up that is because that was, oh my gosh, over 20 years ago. And less than 1 year ago. Actually, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary.
Yeah.
At the end of 2009, last year, my love of conventions came back when I took myself, young Christy, and my mother to a supernatural convention in Toronto. Now, I know you're saying, oh, general supernatural? No, we're talking the CW show. We're talking Jared Padalecki. We're talking Jensen Ackles. We're talking Misha Collins. And at the time, there were so many things. The first thing is we went for 3 days, right? We did the full thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we showed up the Friday and we saw through the Sunday, I'm sure.
And when we got there, I believe there was stuff happening on the Thursday night, but we were like, oh, we don't need to go to the pajama jam party. What we soon learned was that what started as kind of almost a bit, like it was kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, Supernatural's coming to a close. They're saying this is going to be the last Toronto convention for them. I was like, you know what? We should go. Let's go. It could be fun. Like all three of us, we love the show. Like, why not? And then what ended up happening very quickly is we got obsessed with like everything.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden we became enraged that we missed the pajama jammy jam on Thursday night. What were we thinking? Conversation very quickly turned to, well, when we come back next year. Very quickly. But the thing that was also, and this really does play into this podcast, the thing that I didn't realize was that you were going to show up with multiple copies of schedules, highlighted dossiers, folders, multiple colors of highlighter. And you know who else did? My mother. And meanwhile, I'm sitting in between the two of you going like, I brought a big bag in case we want to bring snacks.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, it was an intense experience, right?
Oh, well, I mean, I feel like my experience might have been a little different than yours per se.
Sure.
I mean, I did have a full mental breakdown.
She did.
Just a full mental breakdown.
I witnessed it.
I mean, to be fair, yes, big fan of the show.
Sure.
If they're listening, we love you so much.
We love you so.
The fact that you're ending, I can't even talk about it.
Heartbreaking.
So I've been a Jensen Ackles fan since, I'm going to say approximately, but that's a lie to make it seem like I'm cool, because it was 1997. I happened to be home one day from school. Days of Our Lives came on.
Sure.
And a young Eric Brady just floated on the screen like an angel. And it was a very fresh-faced Jensen Ackles. And that was my moment of, who is that? And that was my moment. I was smitten. And then years go by, Supernatural's coming on. I see that he's in it. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Eric Brady. I'm in it. Let's do this. Your mother.
Yeah.
Hey, Laurel. She also enjoys Jensen Ackles.
She does.
So you are a Misha Collins fan.
Of course.
And so when we discussed going to this, my instinct was like, well, we can't show up with two of us liking the same guy, which, what is this, high school? Like, were we going to a dance and we couldn't both ask the same guy to dance? Well, but then I felt rude. Like, I felt like if you're going to go to this, you need to show up and have a fan for everybody.
Right.
I would also like to point out, I have loved Jared Padalecki for years. Low level love. Like,
of course.
Gilmore Girls. I even watched that fucking Christmas movie he did about the cabin.
Oh, yeah.
Thomas Kincaid or something.
There it is.
I don't know.
Yep.
So I liked him. I enjoyed him. I love him as Sam, but it was just always Dean was my man. And so was John Winchester briefly, but that's
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Oh, that's a whole other thing.
It sure is.
So it came to me that if we're going to this, well, your mother and I would just keep butting heads. And what if we happen to have a photo opportunity? I mean, I had no idea the photo opportunities that there would be, but if we happen to have this photo opportunity, who's going to get to sit with, like, who gets to stand right beside Jensen? And your mother and I, both very strong-willed women, she would beat me out, obviously, because she's stronger than I am. I think physically and mentally, but I would have.
Listen, she did bully you into eating a breakfast sandwich that one day, didn't she? Wasn't she like, you need the protein? And you were like, okay, I guess. It's like, we're adults. She can order what she likes.
She asked what I wanted for breakfast.
Sure.
I ordered a simple bagel. She's like, not even peanut butter? I'm like, I don't need it. She's like, you need the protein. She came back with the peanut butter. And because she brought it, she mommed me and I ate it.
Now I have a question for you, which is, do you like peanut butter that much?
Oh, I do like peanut butter.
So
but I just didn't think about it in that moment. It wasn't, I guess it just wasn't my
Is it a typical thing that you would put on a bagel at home, for example?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. So you know what?
So it's not the worst. It's not like, I was like, oh, I was allergic. I left the room, EpiPen. Like it wasn't anything of that level. It was just, I just wasn't feeling it in the moment. Sure. And then suddenly I was, I guess. She knew better.
She sure, yeah. Again, to your point, she's got a will to her that, yeah,
Yes.
I wouldn't necessarily assume that she would be the person to be like, I have to change my crush to,
Yeah.
facilitate Christy. I think that it was very big of you and kind
Yeah.
that you
Well,
recognized her fortitude and strength and sheer will.
yeah. I
Um,
just wanted it to, I just wanted us all to have a great time.
you wanted it to be even. That's the
Yeah.
story you wanted to tell.
And that's the other thing. I didn't want to show up because this is how sick I am. I didn't want to show up and then have Jared be upset that we're excited about everybody but him. So we would be excited about him anyway, but I'm like, oh, I can't. So then I make the decision on that flight. I was like, I'm about to get on the plane. I'm like, you know what? I think I have to switch. I think I have to go into this con full team Sam.
Of
I think I
course.
just need to get on board. So I spent that flight going through interviews with him and reading like as much as I could about him. And then when I landed in Ontario, because I came from Saskatchewan, for those who don't know, it's from the middle, it's like a 4-hour flight. By the time we landed, I was in love.
Now, what I like is that you're just a pure natural born researcher.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's my go-to, and I think it always has been, where I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I should be more prepared. And then I just take it to a really insane level.
And then, well, long story
Yeah.
short, what ends up happening is, so keep in mind, this is a new like focus for her. And within, I want to say 36 hours, maybe 48 hours of that flight, I watched you have a full mental, physical, emotional breakdown in line to meet Jared Padalecki.
Yeah, like for example, I mean, I think I've always loved him deep down. I just
Yeah.
didn't acknowledge it.
You just didn't
Um,
know.
I didn't know. And in my defense, his height in person, like you think, you look at photos, you look at him on TV and you're like, he's a tall man. You don't know. When you see him in person, it's like a skyscraper. Like it takes your breath away. I don't know why a skyscraper doesn't do that. It was just, he was very tall and just, oh God, I can't, I'm reliving it.
Well, you're going to have to
Yeah.
relive it because, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to need to go to True Crime and Cocktails on Instagram, where we're going to post the picture of where we met the
Oh
three of
God.
them. I was paired with Misha Collins. Christy was paired with Jared Padalecki. My mom
Yeah.
was with Jensen Ackles. And what's amazing about this photograph, and you're going to enjoy very deeply, is that it's three women having three wildly different experiences. My mother is just melting into Jensen Ackles. She feels like she's like entitled to it almost. That's a look on her face.
Yeah.
Cut to
Yeah.
me, I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know where my hands are. I don't know what they're doing. I feel weird. I feel awkward. I don't want to touch. It feels
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And then cut to Christy in a full embrace with
Oh.
Jared Padalecki, literally fully screaming.
In my defense,
Excuse me,
it's a silent scream. I was screaming in my heart
Of
before
course,
I knew
of
that was a
course,
thing.
Of
Yeah,
course.
because I saw him and the air left my lungs,
Of course.
you know. But that's the joke. Like my love of Jensen Ackles goes back multiple decades. And I met him and I was literally like, hey man, you're my favorite Eric Brady. And he was like, thanks so much. That's so kind. I'm like, love the show. He signs it. And I was like, thank you so much. Walked away. It was like it was like he was
Sure.
my cashier at Safeway. I was
Right.
just like, here's my card. Thank you. Have a good day. And that was fine. And then I think Misha, I was embarrassing in front of because my brain just didn't function. But Jared, we were in line. And the closer we got, the more the tears came. And I full cried. I couldn't stop myself. And then him and I shared a moment. And I don't care if I'm terrible for bringing that up. I don't care. I'm going to say it. We shared a moment.
Look, own it. It was yours to have. It's yours to share.
I mean, our hands were together. He put his hand up first. It's not like I was weird about it. And yeah, and then I was just like a full meltdown for the rest of the day because like we kept running into the same women over and over again. And they were just like, is she okay yet? And it was like, no.
Well, listen, and I think you just hit the nail on the head there, because the other thing I do have to mention is all of the excitement, all of the panels, all of the, meeting the personalities that we know from television. That was all very exciting. But I think one of the things that was the best experience about that weekend was first of all, it's like 99% women in this thing. We all
Yeah.
have a shared love, which is supernatural. And there was really such an instant camaraderie with all of the other women there, all the fans. It was just such a like sense of belonging. It was so fun. And I just loved, you know, you get your convention buddies, people who are sitting in the seats next to you at every panel and stuff like that. Like that was the stuff that I thought was also really fun, was just being amongst, you know, for lack of a better term, like-minded people.
Do they have those for podcasts?
You know what? That's a great
just-
question.
I'm just putting it out there.
I don't know. Now I know that they do have something, which is, I believe, called CrimeCon. And
I'm listening.
look, dear listeners, we don't know who organizes such a thing, but like, I don't know, it would be really cool if we went to CrimeCon like with this show, but I feel like people would have to have asked for it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't know that we can like,
We can't ask for it.
can we? Look,
Can we?
send us an email, theories@truecrimeandcocktails.com. If you've been to CrimeCon, if you have any leads about how to get into CrimeCon, if you'd like to see us at CrimeCon, send us an email, give us any sort of, you know, I mean, Christy will get on it because she's a born researcher, but I'm just saying, if you have any advice, tips, you know, just share it with us.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be really fun.
CrimeCon.
Oh, I would love
That's
to just
now
have
a
a
dream.
light buzz on in like a Marriott ballroom with you. You know, we're chatting with people who listen to the podcast,
Yeah.
you know, and then we go up to our hotel room and just order a room service and fall asleep in that bed. That's and of course, I'm assuming
In matching
there's
shirts.
only one bed. I love that. I'm like, oh, we don't need two beds. We're related. We're sisters. Come on. Yeah, in matching pajamas. That's all.
Of course.
Anyway, listen. The point is, dear listeners, if you'd like to see us at CrimeCon again, just tell us how to do it. No, we're asking for help is the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
want an
reaching out.
excuse.
We'll see
We're
what
reaching
happens.
out. And, you know, I know that we're not in a position right now that the world is open for those kinds of things, but hopefully, you know, in the next year or two, God willing, we'll be able to travel again. And yeah, you can be the people when we meet you at CrimeCon that are like, I'm Maisie Day 26. I was the one that gave you that advice. And I'll be like, I remember you, Maisie Day 26. Gosh, I wonder if Maisie Day 26 is listening.
I think we need to tag her when this comes out.
Who knows if that's even an account? You know what? We're going to find out.
If it's not, we'll make one.
Absolutely. Okay, listen, let's get into it. Berkshires UFO, episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Now, for those of you who haven't watched, who aren't familiar with the episode, we're just going to give you some brief information. Basically, you know, the broad strokes are, you know, this was a very unexplained kind of paranormal situation. It was September 1st, 1969, and there were many residents in Berkshire County, Massachusetts, who claimed to have seen an unidentified flying object, a UFO. Despite being spread across the county, many of the witness stories included similar details. Now, the question is, was it a UFO or was there something more sinister behind it? Which is a great question. So there was a lot of the people that they spoke to in the episode were children at the time, children in 1969. So obviously they're adults now, but the stories are pretty wild. You know, people seeing lights out of nowhere in the sky, seeing floating objects. One of the guys I remember talked about trying to run, but he was like running in place. It was like his body was being held there by some kind of unseen force. You know, there was people driving, a woman and her mother, right? And they were driving and then they saw this kind of like weird thing in the sky, and they kind of like lost time a little bit. But anyway, long story short, they all of a sudden like kind of like quote wake up, and they were switched. The mom was in the driver's seat, and then all of a sudden she was in the passenger seat. So the belief that a lot of these people, and I mean there's more stories again of the different people, but the point was that it was around the same time in this one county in Massachusetts on the same day, and so many separate people had these stories, and a lot of them came to the conclusion that they had been abducted by aliens.
Yeah.
But I'm already sensing that Christy maybe doesn't buy that that's actually what happened.
Okay, look. I
can't wait.
I understand believers. I get it.
Sure, I want to
I
believe.
get it.
I want to. It's an X-Files thing. I want to
I
believe.
know. I
It's
know.
okay. It's
Oh,
okay.
I
It's
know
cool.
it
It's
is.
cool.
God, you're adorable. My level of belief in aliens is just really encompasses my love of Tom DeLonge from Blink-182. That's about as high as I go. And I couldn't even love aliens enough for him. Not that he
Wow.
gave me a chance.
Well,
but that's fine.
You'd have to. I just want to say right away, I love that you're the Scully to my Mulder. Like, it feels very right with your short red hair
Well,
right
now. That's high praise. I'll take it. Gillian Anderson any day.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying, look, I believe that there is life on other planets?
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
Do I believe that we are the only things, like, or we're the most intelligent things in this entire universe? God, I hope not. Because, yeah, we got a lot of smart people here, but, whew,
yeah.
you know.
There's a range.
Yeah.
It's on a spectrum.
So, I mean, I went into this hard skeptical, but I've got to do my job. Yeah. I've got to look at this from all angles.
Sure.
And so I've looked at this, and I mean, oh God, it's tough. I mean, it's tough to know where to start.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, they all saw something. They agree they saw something. They're all like spread out miles, if I may, just briefly with a map.
Always time for a map.
Which will be on Instagram.
Yes.
At True Crime and Cocktails.
Yes. Thank you. Follow it.
Because you won't get to see it nicely in this video if you're watching the video.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can even see the whole thing, but the point is, and it's color coded because that's the nut job that I am. Mm-hmm. We've got the first set of witnesses way up here. We've got each of their people who have claimed to see something, and it's a 23-mile difference from the top to the bottom.
Right. Okay.
So it's a very large area of everybody that said they saw something. I believe they saw something.
Sure.
I'm just not really convinced what it is. Now,
well, I mean, there was also a girl that claimed that she levitated in the car, right?
Oh, she was full of shit. Let's now, I think she saw something, but that girl in particular was a full nut job. And the reason I say that, at one point she was like, it was her and her sister and their parents, and they went for ice cream. She was 12 years old at the time. She made a comment about the last thing a 12-year-old wants to do is go for ice cream. And I'm like, well, apparently a chubby redheaded 12-year-old is a little different than what you were, lady. Because if at 12, my parents were like, hey, you feeling ice cream? I would have been in the fucking car already.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? So, and especially like her reaction of, well, the last thing I wanted to do was go for ice cream. I wanted to go with my friends and share cigarettes. And I was like, okay, interesting. I get that it was like 60s, but okay. So it's her family. They get ice cream. They drive out to the lake. They park in the parking lot and they sit to enjoy their ice cream. And that's when they see lights, all of this thing. She claims she was levitated and taken to this ship, all of this. But then she turns around and says, my sister believed me and my boyfriend at the time. They're the only ones who knew about it. But your parents were there. So it's weird. Like, she's claiming she was in this car. She was taken aboard. All of a sudden, she's at the lake by herself and she walked home. And she's like, yeah, nobody believed me. And I'm like, but your parents were there when it happened. And you supposedly walked home alone. So wouldn't your parents have been like, where have you been?
Well, also, it's a weird thing to say, like, my sister believed me. Believed you. She was next to you. So either they saw it happen. Like, what is there to believe? That makes no sense. And look, as I've said already very clearly, I want to believe.
Oh, yeah.
But they're making it a little hard here.
Yeah. I mean, do I think aliens have potentially visited here? Maybe. I'm not 100% convinced, but I'm going to say maybe. Do I think they've visited here multiple times? No. I think they possibly came here once, looked at what we had to offer and went, we're good. And then never came back. Well, there has to be so many other places they could visit that don't have the crazy people we do. And
Sure.
I'm one of those full crazy people.
Look,
They could easily meet me and be like, not our type, and
look,
leave. So I
and
get it.
that's their prerogative. We like us.
Right?
But look, yeah, no. So look, I got very into X-Files and very thus far into UFOs when I was, between the ages of like 10 and 20. I was into this a lot. I did a lot of reading. I watched a lot of, TV specials.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I did like about the X-Files too is though it really was into government conspiracy. And when I first watched this episode, I thought, I don't know how much I buy that this was all aliens, that all of these people were being abducted by aliens at the same time in the same place. What I would believe more than that is that there was some sort of government experiment of some kind. That's where my mind first went. And one of the things that made me think of that was, and I'm remembering this now, I mentioned before, there was people out for dinner. They were in a car and there was this whole pressure change, that kind of thing. And the next thing they knew, they were a mile away. The driver and the passenger had switched seats and they had lost time. They had lost 3 hours. And this is a really consistent theme in a lot of abduction stories. Do you like that now I'm putting on my expert hat for a second?
I like it.
But this idea of lost time is a very specific and common thread between these stories. But to me, the more logical choice would be, again, some sort of conspiracy, some sort of like experiment or test or something, which I know you could argue that would be what the aliens were doing. Do I think that that's the easiest explanation? No, I think the easiest explanation is that it's like government testing or something. So what all of this is to say, this is long story short, too late. What do you think about that theory that this was not aliens and perhaps it was like
government
some sort of
testing?
Yeah.
What do I think about government testing? Okay, well, we're going to have a little talk about government testing. So, in anticipation of this, I thought, I always do my best. I know the people are counting on it. I got to do my due diligence, make sure I really look at this from top to bottom.
Yeah.
And so my first thing after I watched the episode, again, I watch it multiple times and take notes. I'm psycho. You're not psycho if you do it too. If you do it too, it just means we're buddies. So I take my notes and then I'm like, okay, what do I think possibly, what could be any possibility be? Right. One of the theories was government testing. So I looked into government testing and I'm going to tell you, it's terrifying. I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've slept well, and I'm pretty sure I've said that on previous casts that we've done.
Honestly, almost everyone. Either if it's not on the podcast, you've said it to me in private, that it's like, I'm not sleeping great. And to that, I feel terrible because here I am. I'm the Yahoo that just rolls in at the last minute. It's like, give me what you got. Ruining your life? Cool. Very compelling podcast material.
Here's the thing. It's usually my inability to sleep is like, that was something horrifying. It was like, the body was so mangled. Oh my God, I can't now I'm thinking about the body from last week. And that was just what that autopsy report was awful.
Dear. Yeah.
But government testing, looking into this has made me feel crazy. Like so crazy. Like I started this with like a government testing. Weird. And then I find out like, oh, the government, especially like, I'm sure they do so much of it now. But like back in like the 60s and like Cold War era and shit like that, they were doing so many psychological things. And so I'm reading about these tests and suddenly it's turning into like my brain is like, oh God, I can't drink that water. I think they put something in our water. Do you think they put something in our water? I think they put something in our water. Oh my God, do you feel weird? I feel weird. Do you feel weird? Like I just feel like my brain has imploded. And now I'm just that full conspiracy theory nut job where I'm like, did you know in the 60s, the government, like I've got so many things. Like, for example,
please,
did you know that the Army secretly conducted 239 germ warfare tests in open air between 1949 and 1969? They they claim that they were just harmless microscopic little like bugs because they just like sent it out in the world and wanted to see how far the range would go.
Right.
They started testing, they started making like aerosol versions of LSD, and they
Yes.
wanted to like, their plan was this one particular group, which I will get to because they are the main ones that make me not want to sleep. um, they they planned on kidnapping these people. They sprayed a room, like an apartment, with this LSD aerosol. And their plan was put these people in this apartment and just watch what happens. And these people, of course, had no idea. The
Whoa.
majority of the tests that I went through and looked at, I didn't actually go through these tests. I realized how that sounded. The tests that I read about, most of these, the people had no idea that they were being tested. They had no clue about any of this. So like we've got I'm just gonna name drop just to prove that I did my research.
Please.
So we've got like Project Bluebird. They dosed over 7,000 US military personnel with LSD without their knowledge. This is in like Maryland in like I believe it was the 60s. We've got Project 112. It was a biological and chemical weapon experiment conducted by the Department of Defense. It went on for like 11 years. Like it's nonstop. Their primary concern was using aerosols to cause controlled temporary incapacitation. Like it's insane.
Jesus.
There's so many, and there's so many that I don't want to think about again. Sub Project 54. It was a Navy top secret program. They used suboral frequency blasts in the hope of erasing people's memories.
And
So,
see,
yep,
that's now you're getting
yep,
somewhere, because
yep,
that to me feels more plausible than
yeah,
an alien abduction. That there were, yeah, and I've never heard about this. I've never heard about this specific thing. So this was an audio frequency that they would use
that
in
one, yes,
theory. Now, did they,
yes.
and you may not know the answer to this, but did they have success with that? Is that something that
They did,
worked?
they have not, I did not see if they had success.
Well,
I
that's
assume they
chilling.
didn't have a lot, but I mean, that's just
Are
because
you?
that's how I sleep at night. Because
But
if I think that things were not successful, then it's like, okay, that noise I heard down the hall was totally a cat. It wasn't somebody breaking into my house and checking for the, the little camcorder how old am I? Like the microphone or something that they've been recording me with, because they're recording everything we do. They're just always there. Is there something in our water? Like, I'm not even
really
kidding.
coming back to the water for you. Just get a Brita filter.
Yeah. Well, that's the joke. I have one, but who do you think makes them?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
You're right. This is a well that we don't want to go down.
See, it's problematic, especially when it's what you spend like a large chunk of your day with, because
Yeah.
I mean, research is hours and it's a lot. The main one that I wanted to focus on,
Please.
because I read a book about it,
Oh,
which is
you
where
and your
it
books.
started. I know. It's called MK Ultra. So this started after World War II.
Okay.
Nazis go down.
Yep.
American government goes and gets more than 700 scientists and engineers who worked for the Nazis,
Oh.
bring them on over, and they were in Maryland doing this project. They used American and Canadian citizens who had no idea what was going on, and their goal was to, quote, crush the human psyche. Done. Congratulations, sir.
You've done it. Even now,
Yeah,
40 years later, 50 years later.
Yeah. They did hundreds of tests. They had 80 different institutions they did these tests at. I'm talking hospitals, prisons, universities like Harvard, Cornell, all of these. There were secret tests done at these places. They wanted to manipulate people's mental state and alter brain function. They used various drugs. LSD was a huge one for them. They really got
into
into
that.
using it. They used chemicals, hypnosis, electroshock, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, forms of torture. Like they went crazy. And now the book I read specifically was, I also really liked the title. I think that's what drew me in. It's called Poisoner in Chief
Oh,
by Stephen Kinzer. I believe
love
that's how
it.
you say his name. Its main focus was this jackoff, if I may. He's dead now. I'm allowed to say things.
You are.
Names I want to say Sidney Gottlieb, I think is how you
Sure.
say it.
Gottlieb? I don't know.
Yeah, that could be it. He is the person who ran this MK Ultra. He got to a point where he was like, you know what? The best thing that I can do for my research is just lace a ton of stuff with LSD and just I need to see people. I need to see it physically happening before my eyes. So they would
What?
have like fucking staff Christmas parties, and he would lace the food and drinks with LSD and just stand back and watch everybody at the party just like go crazy and like make notes on what was going on. At one point, one of the guys who had taken LSD without knowing, he ended up kind of just like mentally checking out and went out a window of a hotel. Apparently, there's some sort of show called Wormwood that focuses on that.
Oh, okay.
But like his family is like, he didn't do this.
Right.
But I mean, his death alone is something we could look into.
Yeah.
But this project went on till 1973. They tried destroying records. Some of them still exist because thank God for the Freedom of Information Act. Because
It's one of the reasons we could do this podcast.
100%. Then I'm able to look into things. But this particular gentleman, this Sydney, he, despite like he did horrific things to these people. Like these people were tortured, and a lot of them died. Like they did experiments on prisoners where it's like they opened up their brains, put electrodes in them, then revived them to see like what would happen, and then if it didn't work out, they shot them and just like buried the body somewhere.
And
Like
this
so
is
much.
this is a fact? This is crazy.
This is legit stuff that
Okay,
went on. This is
okay.
why I'm terrified of sleeping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now I'm starting to feel like I
Yeah.
gotta need the light, leave the lights on tonight. So
Watch the
let me
water.
let me do. Good news! I'm only drinking this Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc. Okay, so
Yeah.
so I understand the prisoners because they can, or certainly at the time, unfortunately, I don't think there was a lot of rules protecting them. So I can see how they.
Right.
But these other people involved, were they
Yeah.
signing up for some sort of experiment, or how did they find them?
Well, some of them they paid prostitutes to lure men in off the street to this specific
Oh,
apartment where they would then give them a drink that was laced with something, usually LSD, because I got on a real LSD kick.
yeah.
And just to see how it would play out. And I mean, there were some that were voluntary because there was a study done at Harvard that was supposedly a very like super brutal psychological experiment. And one of the people who volunteered for that, Ted Kaczynski.
You're going to love this. I've been feverishly Googling as you've been talking because I'm like, this happened to Ted Kaczynski. This is like the one thing that I know.
I'm so sorry that I took that away from
No,
you.
I'm so glad that
Yeah.
this is part of this because that is a wild story that I never knew until I
Yeah.
watched the like mini series that they did about Ted Kaczynski. But
Yeah.
remind me, because it's been a while. That whole thing was like a psychological test, and they basically were
Yeah.
picking people who they thought were vulnerable, right? Like they
Yeah.
because you had to do a bunch of exams. You know, they thought that they were doing something. I'm sure they made it seem like it was like tests to see how smart you are or something, and like only the smartest. I don't know. But what they were actually doing was weeding out people that seemed strong-willed and like mentally sound. Like they were trying to go after the people who were the most vulnerable mentally for whatever
Right.
reason. And he, of course, was not a mentally well man to begin with. He gets pulled into this thing. And then again, walk me through this a little bit, because I remember, or the way that the miniseries made it, kind of played it out, was they did these kind of like really terrible mind fucks on everybody. And then they were just like, oh, it's over, bye. And so they were left with like these broken brains and no one to pick up the pieces, essentially.
Ted specifically spent 200 hours doing that study.
Woof.
I can't even imagine. And I mean, he's the famous, like, he's like the most famous person that I could find who had been part of their experiments. They did experiments on children. They did horrific things. I can't even really think about it as a mother.
Of course. Of course.
I can't really think about it. I did look up, because I was curious, seeing all of this and knowing that they went like hardcore with LSD. I was curious, what are the mental effects of LSD? Just curious, because I'm convinced that it's possible they had some sort of aerosol LSD that they like sprayed in the area, and these people were all just like very high and losing their minds.
Bringing it back to the episode. Yeah, that sounds like...
I'm convinced that is plausible. I'm not saying 100%. I'm just saying it's plausible, because mental effects, I mean, anxiety. Oh my God, now I'm going to think that there's LSD somewhere in my home. There it is. No, it's just an anxiety disorder.
It's just in the water.
It's just a disorder I've had my whole life.
There you go.
It's fine.
Yep.
A feeling of unreality, electric shocks on the skin, tingling sensations, changing in visual perception, like blurring, objects changing color, which is weird to me, flickering shadows, dancing dots of light, spinning circles of color, which is almost word for word what one of the kids said happened back then. He said that there were like these balls of light on either side of the lake that like moved, and I was like, huh. And then I read this about LSD and I was like, spinning circles of light, huh? I'm just saying, and losing that time, it would make sense. But
now, I guess this, okay, look, I'm with you. This feels very plausible and like a very simple explanation, especially considering you have found actual proof about that this was going on anyway. It feels very, very easy, like an easy explanation. But I guess my question is, what were the logistics of this quote experiment? Was it that they were like, let's take this county, this random county in Massachusetts, let's take a 25 mile radius and spray it with LSD? Then what happened? Did government men kind of like run in to like check in and see what was happening with people? Like, the only thing that seems odd or were they just waiting to see like what would they say the next days? Like, would these people go to the police? Like, how did they collect their data is my question.
Interesting. Well, see, I'm convinced if it has something to do with this, I'm convinced the lights that they saw, that they were like, there was this huge thing and it was lights. I'm convinced it was some sort of government aircraft that they used to like freak people out a little bit. And then they would just, I'm sure they had phones tapped for like the radio station and police and all of this, just to see how many phone calls came in for that kind of thing. Because I don't know. Well, we're going to go to this. Do you know how many types of military aircraft there are in the United States?
I don't.
Well, lucky for you, I do. I mean, I know the numbers now, but the numbers now didn't seem as important because we're specifically looking at 1969, right?
Right.
So they started building aircraft in 1909. So between 1909 and 1969, there were 1,175 types of aircraft. That's like attack planes, blimps, bombers, cargo, drones, stealth, all of that shit.
Right.
From 1962 to 1969, they started doing experimental aircraft. They made 24 of them. Now, this is where you're going to want to go to True Crime and Cocktails
on
Instagram, because Christy's got a few photos for you to look at. Now, just hear me out. I'm just saying they're different shapes than what you would think of as aircraft. They're not exactly like maybe spaceman aircraft, but I mean, just give it a chance.
Sure.
So we've got the A-12 Avenger 2. I learned about planes this week.
Wow. Gosh, you're
That
ever
was
learning.
that was something. Always learning, never stops. So that's the A-12 Avenger 2.
Okay, so it's a very triangular.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. We're just going to go through these quickly because the poor people who aren't seeing this are probably going to get.
But that
really
doesn't look, it literally
Again,
looks like a triangle. Like it doesn't look like a plane at all.
Another similar shape on Northrop YB-49 or something.
It kind of looks like a boomerang, that one.
Yeah. Then we've got the SR-71 Blackbird. SR-71 being,
Why do you always keep me when I'm... Isn't that them?
I can afford that, but yes. Actually, wait. No. Fuck. Who is that?
I think that's SR-71.
It's gotta be. I had the album. I did love
Look,
them.
I saw them open up for Bon Jovi.
Oh, I'm jealous of that show.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun.
I was thinking, I've wrecked the reference because in my mind, who's that rich a-hole that's just a dumbass? Elon Musk.
I was going to say Kid Rock.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, again, we're going to get a lot of complaints that I've just said that about Elon Musk.
So many letters.
But for the record, look him up.
Yeah.
He's not the best.
He's problematic.
I believe he named his child something to do with SR-71. I think because they said it was their favorite spacecraft, which is okay. I've been researching planes for like a week and I don't even have a favorite spacecraft. whatever, nut jobs. If you want to have a favorite spacecraft, have
it's up to you.
Like what you like. Don't be embarrassed about it. So, I mean, look at this bullshit. Like, that's like,
oh, wow.
Very
that's the
rounded, very like, looks like, if I may, similar like something you'd see on Star Trek, like a Klingon warship or something.
It does look like that.
I don't know why I went Klingon warship, but
you know what?
Eat me alive for not getting it right.
Listen, no, the Klingon enthusiasts, I think, will see what you were saying there because I would have thought the same thing.
I have a place in my heart for Star Trek Next Generation because William Riker.
She loves him, you guys. She
has
loves
been in my
him.
heart. And now that I think about it, I've loved him since the 90s when I was a very impressionable child. And he's about the height of Jared Padalecki. So maybe my thing is maybe the height has played a,
And what's amazing is often height doesn't really translate on screen, but you saw through that. And you saw
well,
that's a mountain of a man.
The joke is for the Next Gen fans, and my husband, who is a Next Gen fan, who may happen to listen to this, he might like this. The little he knows about this because I mention it and ruin it every time he watches the show.
Of course.
There's a thing that Riker does. He's so tall and his legs are so long. When he goes to sit in a chair, he literally just throws his leg over the whole chair to sit down. He just like full straddles it. It's a moment for me. Well, now I'm hoping my husband isn't listening, but I'm just saying, like I mean, I realize height doesn't really translate well, but everybody else just goes to sit on a chair and they sit on a chair. He just like the leg goes over it and your stomach drops, or maybe just mine, probably just
Look,
mine.
Jonathan Frakes, if you're listening, we don't know if this was a necessitated leg move or if this was a character choice, but either way, people notice and they like it.
Well,
you've looked it up.
I have.
Of course you have. Who am I talking to?
According to my research, he had back problems.
Oh.
And so it was easier and more comfortable for him to do that. I don't know if that's accurate. If it is or not, I mean, if you are listening, Mr. Frakes, I am a big fan and I'm very flustered and I'm not speaking with him right now.
She's turning so red. So red. I love that I just mentioned that there was a possibility in the grand scheme of the world that Jonathan Frakes may listen to True Crime and Cocktails. And listen, I'm not saying it's not possible. But guys, if you follow Jonathan Frakes, does Jonathan Frakes have Instagram? I don't know. Tag him.
He must. I've been too embarrassed to look. I follow him on Twitter.
Well, listen, then he's got some level of social media. So let's reach out to Jonathan Frakes and turn him on to the show.
Oh,
What
wow.
I love about this episode
Yeah,
is that it
yeah.
seemed like it was going to be me who was the one who was like coming off as a fangirl because of my X-Files love. And so far
That's the only normal part about this.
Oh my God, I love it. Anyway,
I
back to the mind control and the weird planes.
yeah, enough
Okay.
thinking about 6'5" guys who play the trombone. Did you know he plays the trombone? It's fine.
You know that. I love that
Shit.
you know that.
Okay,
Okay.
this is my last vehicle reveal.
Okay, great.
It's called an Avro car. It was made in Canada, but
Oh,
I mean, look at this,
oh, that looks like a flying saucer.
right? I
I
mean,
see what you're saying. So you think that there's a combination here that was happening. You think these people were
yeah.
doused, sprayed,
Mhm.
aerosol canned, whatever, maybe in the water. LSD,
Never trust the water, but drink enough water.
drink it, stay hydrated, people.
Yeah.
Make sure that your pee's not too orange. Anyway, clear pee,
Orange.
clear
God,
hearts,
I'm worried about
can't
you.
lose. I'm deep into this Sauvignon Blanc. Forgive me. But anyway, so you're saying you think this was kind
Yeah.
of like a 1-2 punch, that it was a combination of these people being unknowingly exposed to a hallucinogenic, and then they saw these aircrafts that were also, experimental government things at the time. What is
Yeah.
the connection between the two? Do you think, I'm going to put my conspiracy cap on,
Please
do you
do.
think it's possible that this was a time, where maybe they were wanting to create this diversion? Maybe they wanted people to start to believe in aliens because maybe that would take, I don't know what was going on, truthfully, historically at that time, other than, of course, this was the Vietnam War and all of those things that were happening.
Sure.
Is it possible that they were implanting these thoughts in people's minds to kind of take away, the focus, perhaps, on what was really going on in the country and the world at that time? Is it possible that they were trying this specifically to make people believe in aliens, is my question.
I could see it. I mean, adding to that, could it possibly be that freaking people out, make people think there are aliens, they're going to come here, make people get all patriotic and like, oh my God, I need to go serve my country and protect us. What about that level?
Oh, wow. Maybe aliens was never even a part of it. Maybe it was like, we'll show them these aircrafts they've never seen before. They'll assume that it's from another country. For example, again, Vietnam, all of
Sure.
that
Yeah,
panic
yeah.
going on at that time. And then for whatever reason, people took it a step further and were like, no, this is little green men who take me up into their ship and perhaps anally probe me, which of course is, as you know, a very common theme with alien abduction stories.
100%.
To which
I
I
mean,
want to say,
nobody in
like,
this.
if there are aliens, they must be so pissed that they're like, the problem with Earth, all those people think we're pervs for probing butts. We've never probed butts, okay?
I'm convinced that they've seen, like, they've come close enough that they get, like, they can see our TV shows, or like they can get
Sure.
signals or something, and they've seen what we think of them, and they're just hurt, and they're just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, well,
Yeah.
fuck you, and they've just gone off, and
Because
they're
you
like,
know what?
oh, well, we'll see Venus.
This is really interesting, because I'm like, oh gosh, like this is like bringing back so much of this stuff for me from my younger years. But my question is, and you probably don't know the answer to this, and I'm going to have to look into it, but when did the idea of flying saucers start? Did it start and then this happened after that? Because maybe this whole flying saucer thing, maybe this is the origin of that, is these weird experimental aircrafts that were being made by the government at that time. And maybe
Sure.
the whole story that people came up with through, maybe they did experience something, maybe they were drugged, maybe they did have all of these things happen, but it wasn't, again, extraterrestrial. Maybe this is all a response to what the government was doing at that time, again, with the drugs and the planes.
It could have been. I mean, I don't have an exact date or time frame, but I think we're looking at like 50s, early 50s, for when like flying saucers and
Right.
little green men and all that kind of stuff kind of showed up. I mean, I'm also basing a lot of this on Back to the Future. Because I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, Marty goes back, and then he has to trick his father. I mean, God, I hope people have seen it and this isn't a spoiler.
I think you're safe. It's an old enough film. I think you're okay.
He has to trick his father into going out with his mother, which is a weird thing to say out loud.
Yeah.
But he shows up, he puts on this like full hazmat suit and like scares him in the middle of the night. And
Oh,
George
right.
is like, oh my God, aliens. And that was because he went back like specifically like 30 years, 20. Because
Well,
it
and
was
listen,
in the 1985 and he went back to 1955, I think.
and
That's
I
right.
am sure that Back to the Future was historically accurate. What with their hoverboards and
Oh, look,
Kidding.
that's where
I'm
I
kidding.
get my history.
Like, okay, listen. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I love all of this. I think that you're really onto something here. I think that this is the easiest explanation, and sometimes the easiest explanation is the truthful one. Are there other theories you've explored that you wanted to mention?
I try to look all over the place.
Of course.
The river that the one family was crossing the covered bridge.
Yeah.
That there's a river around there called the Housatonic River.
Okay.
Apparently it they used to mine magnesium there for the atom bomb during World War II.
Okay.
And this is about 3 miles from where the restaurant was that this family owned in town. So that place is like heavily contaminated and super, super toxic. And apparently it can cause like neurological effects like short-term memory and learning deficits and all of these kinds of things. It also causes like cancer. So there's a water source in and around the water. This is where it came from.
You found the origins of your water fear.
I found the origins of my very new water fear. That happened very quickly. Yes, so this river is highly polluted, very toxic. Who knows?
Sure.
If that's given off something. Another option, which I feel I have to say because I'm sure people are screaming at me, and I don't want to get the negative letters because
Sure.
I'm already just so anxious about everything.
Yeah, of course.
I don't need the negativity. I looked into aliens. I felt like
Great.
aliens a possibility, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So in 1947, the government started a thing called Project Blue Book. Its whole purpose was to investigate UFOs.
Interesting.
So my point is, the government has been taking this seriously for decades, but they won't admit to it. So this ran from 47 to 69. In that time frame, they counted 12,618 different sightings. And of those, they felt only 701 were unexplained.
Interesting.
So, I mean, they said stuff was like, they were like, oh, it was just a balloon or an aircraft or some sort of weather or, quote, heavenly bodies, which I, for some reason, found really funny, but I haven't been sleeping. And plus, who knows what's in my water?
So, listen, there's no way to know.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they ended up shutting it down in 69, and they claimed that there was never a security threat. They never found one. They never thought that there was anything that could have been aliens. But then I feel like I have to bring this up because it was brought up again recently in this 2020 hellhole we live in.
Yeah.
So back in 2004, there was a routine training exercise going on. There was a ship The USS Princeton, if you're interested.
Thank you very much.
I looked through a lot of ships too.
I'm
I
sure
looked
you did.
through, it's my life is weird. So this ship was communicating with some fighter jets. They were trying to test some new equipment before they deployed. So they're checking this, and suddenly they heard a lot of clutter, or what they call ghost tracks, on the radio. Now, for those who don't know what ghost tracks are, I did look into them.
Okay.
Apparently, it just means that there's no data is coming up to tell you who the person, where you're receiving this sound from. You're
Oh,
getting a
interesting.
sound, but you don't know where it's coming from, kind of
Got
thing.
it.
So they're getting a lot of these, and then these pilots see what they describe as an elongated egg or tic-tac shape, about 46 feet long, solid white, smooth, no edges. It descends very rapidly from like 60,000 feet, just drops down to like 50 feet in a matter of seconds. It hovers there, and then it just departs really quickly. No sound coming or going, kind of thing. So these videos happened in 2004, and the government was just like, we're going to shut this shit down. We're not going to let anybody know about this. So they hid it. And then in 2017 and 2018, they came out because the New York Times, and I'm very proud to mention him again, the group founded by Tom DeLonge from Blink-182, they're called To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences.
Yes.
They found these clips from these fighter jets of these planes, or these objects, we don't know what they are, and they released it and talked about it, and the government was like, no, that's nothing. And then recently, I think it even came out earlier this year, the government was like, finally, the Navy was like, yeah, they saw something fucking weird. We don't know what it is.
Oh, wow.
So they have admitted that it's something, they don't know what it is. Some guy who worked for the Pentagon at one point, he said, he gave a briefing. It was classified, so I do not have access to those briefings. But he did say that officials retrieved, quote, off-world vehicles not made of this earth.
Off-world? I've never even heard that expression.
Right? Well, I think for him, it was just like he said the material is something like they'd never come across before. He said it could exist somewhere. He's just looked for a decade and can't find it.
Ah.
So, I mean, I did look into aliens. So,
Sure.
Is it possible that there were aliens? Sure. But the people, I mean, I feel different ways about everybody's story.
Right.
Like, we have a story where there's a very sweet older woman who was like, she saw this and whatever. And you know what? I'm going to say it. I believe she saw something because she feels real to me.
Right.
We've got that family in the car where the mom and the grandma switch places. And the kid, one of the kids who was in the car, this Tom Reed, he has been so adamant about aliens for so many decades. He claims that there were like that the occurrence in 1969 was the third time he'd been visited in like 3 years. The first two times it was like a tortoise shell shape of a ship, whereas in 1969 he's like, oh, the ship looked like an upside down Hershey kiss. And I'm like, okay. But his mom, who was in the same vehicle as him, claims the ship in 1969 looked like a tortoise shell, just like he described it from before. So I just can't help but feel like somebody's making something up there.
Right.
Like, it's just, those are two very different shapes to me. So it's weird that they would both see them. But again, if they are fucking looped on LSD and light is stretching in different ways, who knows what they're seeing.
Totally.
But then we've got the girl who claims like, oh, only my sister believed me. And it's like, your sister was there. She supposedly saw it too.
Well, and the boyfriend, right?
Yeah, right. Well, she shifts her eyes when she says the word levitating, which is a very big indicator that somebody is lying.
Right.
She also is constantly fidgeting with her hands, which is another like, oh, it's probably lying.
Right.
But I have to mention the artist. Now, I mean, and I will call him an artist. Is he good? No. I'm so sorry, Mr. Warner, but you're not. But people seem to think he is because he is selling that art
Sure.
for a lot of money. So
Right.
I would like people to know he does actually make a living off that. But um, do I believe him? No. His interview, his whole thing, like he's very fidgety the whole time.
Yeah.
And there's like he is constantly touching his face, and touching your face apparently or covering your mouth is a big indicator of lying. Right. There's one point where he said like it was therapy doing that painting, and how he also made the bullshit claim of I didn't think I'd show this to anyone. Well, I went on his Facebook page. Facebook is public to everybody.
Thank you very much.
And God, they're probably recording everything I do. See, nope. This is somehow making me even more neurotic than I already am.
I get it.
So I go on his page, and he'd been teasing this painting he made like a year or two ago, and was like, "Can't wait to show you guys the new painting I'm working on." So it's like, dude, you claimed you weren't going to show anybody, but good thing he told us about it, because now it's the cover of his book that he's just bringing out now to tell about this experience.
Okay.
He's also the guy that on the show claims he was on the ship at one point and he saw the girl who was at the lake with her family.
Right. The levitator.
Yeah, he claims he saw her on the ship. And she was like, I didn't see him, but he says he saw me. But the way he says he saw her, and you can look, and I was psycho enough, I went back. You want to go to minute 1252 of the episode, and he talks about her, and he closes his eyes for multiple seconds in a blink. Like, holding a blink that long is a huge indicator that you're lying.
Interesting.
And so I truly believe maybe he saw something and just like I'm going to say it was so much bigger and get so much more attention. And then he hears this girl being like, oh, I saw it too. And he's like, oh yeah, I totally saw you there. You know, like it feels like he's lying because he's currently trying to like make a living off of this.
Right.
And this kind of attention. And I mean, there is the guy, Tom Reed, who was in the car. He was like 9 or 10 at the time. He got a letter from like the Great Barrington Historical Society that claims, I have the letter here somewhere in all of my papers, but that claimed that this UFO thing happened and was real. Like they're like, yep, it happened. We're gonna say it did. We're gonna admit it's the very first one to ever happen in history.
And what is the Barrington?
USO.
Where is it from? The Barrington?
Great Barrington, which is in Massachusetts. That name is not easy.
Massachusetts. Massachusetts. I said two shits. I didn't mean to.
We don't mean this. We're
into the wine. So wait a minute. So this is from the city? Who is this? Who wrote this letter?
The director of the Historical Society and Museum for the city he lives in the county, which is Berkshire.
And so because the guy who runs the museum says this was real, we're to believe it was real?
Well, here's the thing. So they said that they gave him a polygraph test, which he passed. And they're like, so that proves. And I'm like, that just proves he thinks he's telling the truth.
Right.
If you're 9 years old and you have something really fucked up happen and your brain can't quite process it, you're going to make it into something else.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, as an adult, you're like, oh, that totally is what happened. Like you're going to believe it. So you're going to pass a polygraph. The thing that I noticed is that the Justice of the Peace who notarized this letter, his name is Kevin Titus. Okay. Now, who's Kevin Titus, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you did, because I've looked him up. Here's the thing. I feel awful. I have not mentioned this before for all of the fellow sleuthers out there who like to deep dive. on Reddit, if you go on to the Unsolved Mysteries subreddit, there, like somewhere, I believe pinned to the top, is a post from Unsolved Mysteries and Netflix, and they posted like a Google Drive that's full of bits and pieces from the episodes that they didn't show on the air. They claim that there's way more than there is. A lot of it is stuff that was on the show, but there are like little clip interviews that they didn't make to the show.
Right.
One of the interviews is this Kevin Titus, who was a child at the time that this happened, but he claimed he was at a friend's house and they saw this turtle shell shaped vehicle come down from the sky, bright lights, no noise, and then they saw a dead cow that had been ripped apart, but there was no blood of any kind. I just find it very interesting that one of the people who also claims to have seen this is the person who notarized this letter of authenticity for this event, because it's the one and only time in U.S. history. Like they're literally saying that this society has formally and officially inducted the first off-world / UFO case in U.S. history.
Okay. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. These people can say that they believe it's real, but yeah, they have no credibility. Based on what?
It's a lot. Like, I mean, well, they claim that they went off of what this family said. They went off of the broadcast that the radio station did that day, the day after, or whatever it was. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's good for him. He also, I do want to point out, this Tom Reed dude, he isn't like, it was an alien for sure. He is open to possibilities. He's like, right. It could be the toxic river. It could be who knows what. Like, he's willing, he's open. He just, it says, I experienced something. We were surrounded. It was something I've never seen. Like, it was just this intense moment. And so I appreciate that he's willing to, you know, see multiple sides, because
sure,
who knows what it could be. But, I mean, in the end, I feel like of the main groups, I feel most of them are telling the truth. That artist, again, I mean, he also claimed in the episode to have like mental telepathy.
Yeah.
Like, he was at a neighbor's house and suddenly he heard a voice tell him to go home. So that's when he took off. That I find, well, in the nicest way. I just think that part is bullshit. He's the youngest of 7 kids. So I just feel like, well, yeah, if I had 6 siblings that I was competing for their for like parents' attention, I might suddenly see a UFO too. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Well, listen, I think that the bottom line here is something obviously happened on that night. There were so many people that saw, experienced, felt something. I think that it's not possible that they're all lying. To what degree their memories or experiences are 100% accurate, I think that's probably up for debate. Sure. But what do you think? I mean, overall, it sounds to me like, if I had to choose my theory, it sounds to me like I really think that you're onto something with the governmental testing, the LSD tests that were happening at that time, and the experimental aircraft. I would put my money on that was actually what this was all about. What do you think? What, at the end of the day, what's your like gut theory about what the explanation is for Berkshire's UFO?
I'm terrified to say the 2 words, but because I'm terrified of it being out there, but the government. I've turned into this person now. I wasn't fully with it before, but now I'm just like, oh God, they're everywhere. Like, they hear everything we do. Again, we like your work.
Listen,
if you could get us to CrimeCon, that'd be great.
If you have a lead, if the government is listening and you have a lead, just let us know. Look, I think we should also make it clear, in case the government is listening, like, we're not trying to, we're not raising flags. You don't need to investigate us. Oh God, that's what someone guilty would say, but legitimately.
Well, that is a key word they're probably listening for.
Yeah, damn it.
But, yeah.
No, I mean, I kid. But I think the bottom line is that certainly, and we're not suggesting that this stuff is still happening, but certainly at that time,
God, I
there's
hope not.
documented proof that that stuff was going on. It feels like that's probably the easiest explanation.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the aircraft, I will say, some of the ones that I mentioned, they claim they only made a prototype, and then we're like, oh, it didn't work out, and it's like, but all of my notes, it's like my weird hands, like just scribbled, where I'm just like, oh, it's just a prototype. They canceled that project, and then I wrote over it with Sharpie, or did they? Like, my brain is just on fire.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they're secretly
Yeah.
spraying people with, hallucinogenic
Oh
drugs, I don't
God.
know that we can trust that they're only ever telling the truth, whether we
I
like it or
can't
not.
even imagine like just going to a work function. Like, hey, you want to come with me to the office party? Let's go have a good time. Why isn't that guy going near the food? That's weird. I'm having a great time. Like, it's just so crazy. And then to find out afterwards that they drugged you so that they could just watch it happen in real time. And then you go back to work. Like, I just don't understand why people
Yeah.
would want to continue working there. I'm sure the government pays very well. And maybe they were just scared to, like me, terrified of the government.
Well, listen, I think
That's where I'm
if
at.
there's anything I've experienced over the course of recording this podcast, it's that I've forgotten how much watching the X-Files makes you fear your government, and you have
Yeah.
just ignited that for me with a giant flame, and I appreciate you for that, obviously.
And I reminded you of Jonathan Frakes and his incredible height. I
Very,
can't.
very tall. Jonathan, if you're Mr. Frakes, if you're listening, she's turning very red again.
Oh
Big
my God,
fan.
I'd love an autograph.
Oh, listen, on that note, Christy Oxborough, your research is just, it never ceases to amaze me. I truly appreciate all that you do. Thank you for coming up with so many different pieces of information about this case.
I'm learning that I like to learn.
And you know what?
And I think part of it, honestly, deep down, I think I want to impress you.
Listen, you
You know?
already have. You
Oh,
already have. You don't have to do a dang thing. That's the truth.
oh, I want this to happen at that Marriott hotel room after we
Yes.
have a really great CrimeCon panel.
Yeah, exactly. Again, people,
Yeah.
send us your emails, theories@truecrimeandcocktails.com. Let us know. Let us know if you know anything about the vetting process. What do we submit? Who knows? Has anyone gone on one of those CrimeCon cruises? I've heard that there's like cruises devoted to this. Look, nobody's getting on a cruise ship anytime soon, but I'm just saying, like, tell me your stories. Tell us your stories about, like, if you had a good experience doing that.
Oh, would you want to drink with us at
I think
CrimeCon?
if they've made it to episode 5 of this show, I'm willing to bet that they'd like to pour one out with us. That's for sure.
Well, if I haven't scared them off with my tall brunette men, oh, this is getting terrifying.
Look, if it doesn't take a researcher to know you gotta type, okay?
I just want to say I love my husband more than
Of
anything.
course.
You
Of
know.
course you do. Well, listen, thank you so much once again. This is always a joy. I'm so happy to have a weekly slumber party with you, matching clothes, lots of cocktails. I'm so knee deep in the Sauvignon Blanc. It's a lovely, warm feeling. I thank you all for listening. We're so excited that you've come with us on this true crime journey. As we've mentioned multiple times, if you have a theory about this one, Berkshires UFO, or any of the other Unsolved Mysteries episodes, sorry, got ahead of myself, the booze. Email us, theories@truecrimeandcocktails.com. We're going to do an upcoming episode where we only discuss fan theories, your theories. So if you want a chance to get your ideas heard, you got to send them to us because we'd love to hear them. Like I said, Instagram @truecrimeandcocktails. We're going to put up all the information you need, any visuals you need to see. They're all going to be there. You can also find us on Twitter @NotDetectives. Christy, you're also on Twitter and Instagram @UnsolvedChristy. Isn't that right?
I am. I do believe so. I mean, the last time you and I talked about this, I did not know my handles.
And now you do, which is great.
But now I do. Yeah.
I also just want to mention that if you want to watch the unedited Zoom footage, again, we shoot these at night. We're in our pajamas. You're welcome to do so. You can find those on our website, truecrimeandcocktails.com. Christy, it's always such a joy. And I'm so excited for next week. We don't know what that episode's going to be yet because the new episodes of Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix are coming out. So when you're listening to this, we're going to be watching those for the first time. Very exciting. So I'd love to tease what episode we're going to talk about next week. But the exciting thing is that we don't know. So make sure you watch. Those new episodes are coming again on October 19th. And I'm not sure, again, now I've got me into a date timeline. I don't know what date this is at. I don't know where I am. I don't know what time zone I'm in. The point is, watch the new episodes. Get excited because we're going to dive into all of those week by week, and we're so excited that you're going to do it with us. Christy, do you want to say goodbye to the people?
Bye, everybody. By the way, I just want to say, we really love you guys. We appreciate the support. We really love it. You guys have been so lovely. So thank you so much for coming, and we love you.
Love you tons.
That got hard fast.
You're deep into the Palm Bays.
I'm still thinking about freaks.
Listen, you will as you sleep tonight.
Oh, God. Well, unless I drink the water.
Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Hope you can sleep tonight. We're not going to. Bye.